Imagine waking up one day and realizing you're a stranger in your own skin, not because of the soft belly where there was once tautness, or the fine lines that crept in like secrets whispered in the dark. Not even because of the ever-present hum of exhaustion that trails you like a shadow. No, this is deeper, more disorienting. Imagine walking past a mirror, pausing, and wondering, who is she? She looks familiar. She wears your eyes. But something essential is missing, some fire, some edge, some unnameable thing that once made you you. You pick up a toy off the ground, step over a trail of crushed cereal, and answer to a name you never used to hear, Mommy. It's a name soaked in love, yet it tugs on you like an anchor. There's warmth in it, yes, but there's also an eerie silence beneath, where once there was the symphony of your unfiltered self. What happened to the woman who used to wander bookstores without checking the time? The one who danced to her own playlists instead of lullabies? Who stayed out too late, got lost in conversations, and said yes to wild, irrational things without consulting anyone else's nap schedule or snack preferences? Does she still live inside you, or did she vanish the moment the first contraction hit? You don't say these things out loud, because mothers are supposed to feel grateful, fulfilled, complete. Society hands you a script, one that celebrates sacrifice as sainthood. It tells you that becoming a mother is the most meaningful transformation, that losing your former self is not a loss but a transcendence. But what if that's only half the story? What if there's a quiet grief threaded through the joy, one that no one warns you about? They throw you baby showers and give you books on sleep training and feeding schedules, but no one hands you a manual for the existential disintegration. No one prepares you for the moment you realize that while you gained a child, you also lost something intangible, the uninterrupted access to your own desires, your own rhythm, your own voice. And maybe you brush it off at first. You tell yourself this is temporary, that you'll get back to normal once things settle. But they don't settle, do they? They just shift. The chaos becomes routine. Your name becomes secondary. Your calendar, once filled with personal milestones and spontaneous plans, now overflows with pediatric appointments and endless to-do lists that never feel quite finished. You try to reclaim bits and pieces. A late-night journal entry, a stolen hour with a novel, a forgotten playlist rediscovered in the car. But it's like trying to catch mist with your bare hands. The more you reach for her, that other version of you, the faster she seems to fade. And then there's the guilt. Because how can you mourn your old life when your arms are filled with the very thing you once dreamed about? You wanted this. You chose this. And yet, here you are, holding joy in one hand and grief in the other, and no one told you that was allowed. Isn't motherhood supposed to be enough? That's the unspoken rule, isn't it? That needing more somehow means you're doing it wrong. That yearning for your former self is a betrayal. But what if the real betrayal is pretending you're fine when you're slowly unraveling inside? What if wholeness isn't about choosing between the mother and the woman, but giving both permission to coexist, even when they pull in opposite directions? You start to notice the small rebellions, the moments when your reflection catches a flicker of the old you, when you speak a sharp truth instead of softening it, when you dress for you instead of function, when you remember that your dreams didn't expire with childbirth. You begin to wonder, maybe she didn't disappear. Maybe she's buried beneath layers of caretaking, of self-suppression, of trying so hard to be everything for everyone. But how do you dig her out? How do you retrieve the parts of you that were placed on hold the moment you stepped into this role? This isn't about regret. This isn't about wishing things were different. It's about truth. The kind of truth that lives under the surface, aching for language. Because once you name it, the shame begins to loosen. The silence breaks. And something begins to stir, something fierce, something honest, something deeply human. Maybe the real question isn't, where did she go? Maybe the question is, can you welcome her back, not as a ghost of the past, but as a vital part of who you are becoming? You didn't mean to vanish. It didn't happen all at once. It was slow, so gradual that you couldn't mark the exact moment it began. Maybe it started the first time you ignored your hunger because the baby was crying, or the night you wanted to scream into a pillow but didn't, because someone was always watching, always needing, always depending on you to hold it together. Or maybe it was when you started speaking in third person. Mommy's coming. Mommy will fix it. You became a role, a function, a dependable, selfless presence. You became air, essential, everywhere, but invisible, and the world congratulated you for it. They called you strong. They said things like supermom and I don't know how you do it, and you smiled and nodded, but inside, something cracked. Because you weren't strong, not in the way they thought. You were surviving, performing, numbing. You were showing up even on days when you felt like a house with all the lights off. Here's the twisted part. The more you sacrificed, the more applause you got. But it was applause for your erasure, for disappearing so thoroughly into your child's needs that your own became an afterthought. That's what a good mother does, right? But what if that model is broken? What if we've romanticized martyrdom and called it love? There's this unwritten rule in motherhood that to want anything for yourself, time, space, passion, ambition, is indulgent. That selfhood is optional. That asking for more is selfish. But here's the secret you were never told. Your children don't need a hollowed-out version of you. They don't need the ghost of who you used to be. They need the whole, breathing, wildly alive you, even if that means you step away sometimes. Even if that means they see you cry, or rage, or create, or reclaim pieces of your life that don't revolve around them. Because one day, they'll grow up, they'll leave, and who will be left in your skin when they do? The terrifying thing isn't that they'll stop needing you, it's that you may have forgotten how to need yourself. You think about the dreams you shelved, the art you stopped making, the career paths that dimmed in the rearview mirror. You tell yourself it was the right thing, necessary, but some nights, lying awake in the dark after the house finally stills, you wonder, was there another way? Could you have held on to her, the woman who once woke up with ambition humming in her bones, without betraying the mother you are now? You remember the mornings that used to start with coffee and curiosity, not cries and commands, the softness of solitude, the thrill of possibility. Now your time is rationed, measured in half-hour increments between snacks, tantrums, and school pickups. And when you do get time, you freeze, you scroll, you clean, you stare at the walls and forget what you used to want. That's what identity loss really feels like. It's not dramatic, it's subtle. It's the erosion of impulse, the dimming of instincts, the moment you stop asking, what do I want? And only ask, what do they need? You begin to realize that no one will hand your life back to you. No one will say, hey, it's time for you to remember who you are. You have to claw your way back inch by inch, desire by desire. You have to listen for the whispers beneath the noise, the ones that say, you still matter. You are not just a container for other people's lives. You want to create again. You want to move your body in ways that feel like freedom. You want to speak words that don't end in sweetie or careful. You want to be seen not as a role, not as a utility, but as a whole, complicated, luminous human being. But how do you begin, when the world has taught you that your worth is directly tied to your usefulness? You start small. You start by saying no when every reflex screams yes. You start by sitting still when the house is a mess. You start by taking back 5 minutes, then 10, then an hour. You start by remembering what lights you up, even if you can't fully return to it yet. And most importantly, you start by telling the truth. You say it out loud, I miss my old life. Not because you don't love your children, but because you also loved the woman you were before they arrived. That's not betrayal. That's honesty. That's mourning. And mourning is part of transformation. You're not going back. You can't. But that doesn't mean you have to stay lost. The old life is gone, but the old you isn't. She's waiting. Beneath the diapers and dishes and daily demands, she's there, sleeping maybe, but not gone. She's not asking for a time machine. She's asking for integration, for resurrection. She wants to evolve with you, not be erased by you. And maybe, just maybe, you don't have to choose between being a mother and being yourself. Maybe the most radical act of motherhood is refusing to disappear. Maybe the path forward isn't about reclaiming the past, but forging a future where all yourselves can stand together, shoulder to shoulder, instead of buried beneath each other. You used to think motherhood would make you whole, but now you understand, it strips you raw first. It doesn't hand you a new identity. It demands that you build one from the rubble of who you used to be. And the blueprint? It doesn't exist. No one tells you that becoming a mother is less like stepping into a new role and more like being burned down to your bones so something new can grow. And growth, that's the part no one talks about. They tell you about the baby milestones, first steps, first words, first days of school, But what about your milestones? The first time you voiced a need without apology. The first time you said I'm overwhelmed and let the silence hold the weight. The first time you asked yourself, not what should I be doing, but what do I want? What about those? Because in a world obsessed with measuring your child's development, no one's measuring the quiet, defiant resurgence of you. But you feel it, don't you? It starts with the ache, the dull, pulsing recognition that your life has become a series of tasks, efficient, necessary, but soul-numbing. Then comes the anger, not the explosive kind, but the slow-burning resentment that simmers under the surface. Not at your child, never at your child, but at the version of life you were sold. The one that told you this would be enough. And then one day, you stop apologizing for wanting more. More than endless laundry, more than selfless giving, more than being a background character in your own story. You begin to realize that your desires aren't distractions from motherhood, they're extensions of it. Because what better gift can you offer your child than a mother who is fully herself? Not perfect, not perpetually present, but passionate, lit up from the inside, someone who doesn't just model survival, but aliveness. So you start asking hard questions. What did I bury to become this version of myself? What dreams did I silence to keep the peace? What version of me is trying to claw her way out? And slowly, imperfectly, you begin to answer, not in grand declarations, but in moments. You wake up 30 minutes earlier to write. You sign up for the dance class, even though you feel ridiculous. You start saying no to people who only loved the version of you that never needed anything in return. You make space, sacred space, not just in your schedule, but in your soul. And with every small act of rebellion, something shifts. You stop folding yourself into spaces that no longer fit. You stop waiting for permission. You stop apologizing for needing solitude, creativity, ambition, rest, depth. You stop pretending. And it's hard, God, it's hard. Because the world doesn't make it easy. There's always a voice whispering that you're selfish, that you should be more grateful, that other moms do more with less, that your exhaustion is normal, that this slow death of self is the price of love. But you don't buy it anymore, because love, real love, doesn't ask you to vanish. It invites you to expand. You begin to see your past life not as a relic, but as a reservoir. You draw from it. The reckless laughter, the creative obsessions, the nights you stayed up dreaming, the parts of you that felt free, undiluted, wild. They weren't childish. They weren't naive. They were essential. They are still yours. You don't have to abandon her, the woman you used to be, to embrace who you are now. You just have to stop dividing yourself into before and after. You are not a timeline. You are a mosaic. 1,000 lives lived in one body. And motherhood is not a single chapter, it's a layering, a deepening. But it is not the end of your becoming. It is the beginning of a new evolution. And maybe that's what identity in motherhood really is, not a fixed destination, but a fluid, living conversation between all your parts. The nurturer, the artist, the rebel, the lover, the dreamer, the warrior. They all get a seat at the table now. And some days, one will speak louder than the others. Some days, the mother will lead. Other days, the part of you that craves adventure will whisper, "Don't forget me." And on rare, golden days, they'll all rise together in harmony, and you'll feel whole again, not because you've gone back to your old life, but because you've allowed all of you to exist in this one. This is not about balance. Balance is a myth that asks you to stay perfectly still. This is about movement, permission, grace. This is about telling the truth even when your voice shakes. This is about modeling a life that teaches your children that their identity matters too, and that love does not mean disappearing. So you stop hiding your ache. You speak it. You share it with the woman at school pickup who always looks a little too tired. You write it down. You say it to your partner. You let it live outside your chest, so it doesn't harden into bitterness. And when your child asks you one day, "What did you used to do before me?" you smile. Not with regret, with reverence. Because you remember now, and you're still becoming, and you're not done. You were never meant to choose between motherhood and yourself. You were meant to create a life that honors both. Not perfectly, not all at once, but fully, fiercely, finally.